This podcast is brought to you by Give Us Mo Entertainment.
Welcome to the AI Analysis Podcast. Today we're talking about a book that just about every millennial kid read in school.
It really is a generational touchstone, isn't it? You just mentioned the title, and an entire generation instantly has this visceral memory of wilderness, survival, and just the sound of mosquitoes buzzing in their ears.
Exactly. We are talking about Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. It was published back in 1987, won a Newbery Honor, and while it's technically classified as young adult fiction, I think anyone who revisits it as an adult realizes it functions much more like a gritty, no-nonsense survival manual disguised as a story.
It absolutely does. It strips away any romance of the wild very, very quickly. I mean, this is not a Disney movie where the animals are your friends and they, help you clean your room.
Right.
This is the story of 13-year-old Brian Robeson, who finds himself stranded completely alone in the Canadian wilderness for 54 days. And the stakes are set right from the title. He has nothing but the clothes on his back and a hatchet.
And before we even get to the survival mechanics, which are fascinating, and we will get into the nitty-gritty of them, we really have to set the stage for who Brian is before the crash. Because that contrast between city Brian and wilderness Brian is like the core engine of this book.
Oh, absolutely. He isn't a Boy Scout.
Not at all. He isn't an outdoorsman.
No, he is a city kid through and through. The text makes a real point of telling us he knows video games and shopping malls. He doesn't know how to start fires. He definitely doesn't know how to gut fish. He is completely, utterly unprepared for what is about to happen to him.
He's soft, right? In the way that modern civilization kind of allows all of us to be soft.
Exactly. We rely on systems to keep us alive, grocery stores, heating, running water. Brian is the embodiment of that reliance.
And he's not just unprepared physically. He is emotionally compromised. I think this is a part of the book people forget about because they focus so much on the crash. But he is carrying this incredibly heavy baggage.
Yeah, his parents are recently divorced, and Brian is walking around with the weight of what he calls the secret.
The secret. It's such a driving force in his early psychological state, isn't it?
It's the reason he's so distracted and so sullen. He saw his mother sitting in a station wagon at the mall, kissing a man with short blonde hair. A man who definitely was not his father.
It's such a specific suburban detail. A station wagon. It just represents this shattering of his entire domestic safety.
Yeah.
It's so banal, but for him, it's devastating.
It is. And that image just burns in his mind. It's a violation of his whole world order. So when we meet him, he's flying from Hampton, New York, up to the Canadian oil fields to visit his father for the summer. He's sitting in this Cessna 406 bush plane, vibrating with the engine noise, but internally, he's vibrating with this anger and confusion about the divorce.
He's completely in his own head.
Totally. Just replaying that scene in the mall over and over and over again.
Okay, so let's talk about that flight. It was just Brian and the pilot. The pilot's name is either Jim or Jake. Brian can't quite remember, which I think really emphasizes how disconnected Brian is from the people around him at this point.
That's a great point. He's so wrapped up in his own misery, he barely registers the man sitting next to him.
And the pilot is a man of few words.
Yeah, he's trying to be nice in a sort of stiff, quiet way. At one point, he lets Brian take the controls for a minute, shows him how the rudder pedals work. It's a small moment, but it establishes that the pilot is competent, just doing his job.
And it also plants a tiny seed of knowledge, how the plane moves, that Brian is going to need in about, 10 minutes?
Exactly. But mostly, the pilot is just background noise to Brian's internal crisis.
And then it happens. Tragedy strikes. And Paulsen writes this scene with such visceral, terrifying detail. It's not a Hollywood heart attack where the guy just clutches his chest and falls over dramatically.
It's the smell that hits Brian first.
The smell of body gas.
Yes, it's so raw. It's pure biology. Brian notices the pilot rubbing his shoulder, rubbing his arm, the classic symptoms. And then there's the sudden release of gas in the cockpit. It's just unglamorous and horrifying. It's the smell of a body failing.
The pilot is having a massive, fatal heart attack right there in the seat.
And the description of the seizure is so intense, the pilot is jerked back against the seat, his legs kick out, which actually knocks the plane off course, and then the tragedy is just there. The pilot is dead.
And there's that silence of the human element against the constant roar of the engine. Brian is alone.
Yeah.
And he is 7,000 feet in the air.
This is the moment where the reality of the situation just crashes in on him. The pilot is dead, the plane is roaring along, and Brian is just paralyzed. The text says his very core is stopped. It's that freeze response.
Fight, flight, freeze. He's just frozen.
Absolutely. He is just a 13-year-old boy in the sky, and the person who was keeping him alive is gone.
I can't even imagine the panic. He does try the radio, right? He manages to grab the headset from the dead pilot.
He does. He manages to figure out the push-to-talk switch, which is harder than it looks if you've never done it. And he gets a faint signal, a voice asking for his location and flight number. But Brian doesn't know any of that.
Of course not. He's a passenger.
He hasn't been paying attention to the flight path. He doesn't know where he is. And then the signal just breaks up. He's screaming, "Help!" into the void, but the radio signal dies. He is truly, completely cut off. The technology that connected him to the world has just failed.
So now he has a choice. The engine is still running. He can either push the throttle and crash sooner or wait for the fuel to run out. It's a horrific calculus for a kid to have to make.
It really is. He decides to wait. He holds the plane steady, trying to keep it level. But eventually, the engine coughs and dies. And the text describes the silence that follows as deafening.
Just the wind.
Just the sound of the wind over the wings, the nose drops. Brian has to glide this thing down. He has to become the pilot.
Yeah, he spots that L-shaped lake. That's his target. And the descent is just violent. This isn't a smooth landing on a runway. He's coming in hot, ripping through trees.
The aerodynamics are gone. The wings are literally being torn off by the pines. The trees act as a kind of buffer, slowing him down but destroying the plane in the process. There's dust and dirt blowing into his face. And then the impact with the water, it's like hitting concrete.
The windshield shatters.
Water rushes in, and he has to claw his way out of the cockpit while the plane is sinking.
It's an absolute nightmare. He nearly drowns, drags himself to the shore, and just passes out.
Yeah.
And when he wakes up the next morning, the reality check really begins.
Oh, yeah. He's battered. His forehead is swollen shut. He can barely move. And then the sun comes up.
And with the sun come the vampires.
Oh, God. The mosquitoes. Paulsen dedicates so much ink to this, and it's so effective.
It's one of the most memorable parts of the entire book for me because it just destroys that romantic isolation trope immediately.
Right. It's not just a few bugs buzzing around. The text describes it as a living coat on his skin. They clog his nostrils. They pour into his mouth when he tries to breathe. His face swells up until he can't see. It's just pure, unadulterated misery.
It establishes right away that nature is aggressive.
It sets the tone immediately that nature is not hospitable. It's an assault. It's not a postcard. It's a living, breathing entity that wants to eat you.
And speaking of being under assault, Brian makes his first major survival mistake right here, largely due to pain and confusion.
Thirst. He is incredibly thirsty. So he crawls to the lake, balances on a log near a beaver lodge, and just drinks. He gulps down huge amounts of lake water.
Which, as anyone with any survival training knows, is a very bad idea.
A terrible idea.
Right.
First, you don't know the pathogen load in the water, though luckily that doesn't kill him. But more immediately, when you're that dehydrated and in shock, you have to sip, you have to moderate.
But he doesn't.
He drinks until his stomach is distended, and almost immediately he vomits it all back up. It's his first harsh lesson. Impulses can hurt you. Nature demands discipline, and he doesn't have it yet. He is still reacting like a consumer who thinks if he wants water, he can just have as much as he wants.
So he's sick, he's battered, the mosquitoes are eating him alive, and now the hunger starts to set in. This moves us into the phase of the learning curve, right?
Right. Brian realizes that the searchers might not be coming immediately.
He does the math.
Exactly. He remembers that when the pilot had the heart attack, his foot kicked the rudder pedal. The plane flew off course for hours before running out of fuel. They could be hundreds of miles away from the flight plan.
And that realization has to be crushing. It's the difference between waiting for a ride and I have to survive.
It is. But this is where we see the first little flicker of resilience. He remembers his English teacher, Mr. Perpich.
Ah, yes, Mr. Perpich.
Mr. Perpich is the voice of reason in Brian's head. He used to preach about staying positive. His mantra was, "You are your most valuable asset." It sounds like a cliche on a classroom poster, but in the Canadian wilderness, it becomes a literal lifeline.
He has to get motivated.
He has to stop waiting and he has to stop being a victim of the crash and start being the agent of his own survival.
So priority number one, food. He sees some birds landing in a bush and thinks, okay, if they're eating, maybe I can eat.
So he follows them and finds these bright red berries. He's starving, so he just strips the branches. He eats them, pits and all. He gorges himself. He doesn't even taste them. He just shoves them in.
And we all know what happens next. The infamous gut cherries.
It's graphic, but it's so real. He wakes up in the middle of the night screaming for his mother. His stomach is tearing itself apart, explosive diarrhea, cramps. It's just awful. He learns that just because something is edible doesn't mean it's good for you in large quantities.
Especially the pits.
Exactly. He names them gut cherries for a reason. It's another brutal lesson in moderation.
But he learns. He goes back out and finds raspberries later. Much better. But while he's picking them, he has his first major encounter with a predator.
The bear. And this is fascinating because it totally subverts the expectation. Brian freezes. He sees this massive black bear standing right in front of him. In his mind, conditioned by movies and TV, he expects to be attacked. He expects a monster.
He expects aggression.
Right. But the bear just looks at him.
It just looks at him, eats a few more berries, and then leaves.
And Brian has this profound realization. The bear doesn't want to kill him. The bear just wants berries. The woods aren't out to get him.
They're indifferent.
Exactly. They are completely indifferent. They don't care if he lives or dies. And that indifference is almost scarier than malice in a way. Malice implies you matter. Indifference means you don't. You are just another biological object in the landscape.
Wow. So he has berries. Now he needs shelter.
He finds a rock overhang, a kind of scooped out bowl near the lake. He weaves a wall of sticks to close it off. It's crude, but it's a space he can call home. It defines inside versus outside, which is a huge deal for your mental health in a survival situation.
And he needs that security because things get painful again. He's sleeping in his shelter when he hears a slithering noise.
It's the middle of the night. It smells like rot. He kicks out in the dark and throws his hatchet blindly.
And then pain explodes in his leg.
It's a porcupine. It slaps him with its tail, driving quills deep into his calf. So now he's alone, in the dark, bleeding, with dozens of quills stuck in his leg. It's physical torture.
And he has no one. No anesthetic, no doctor, no mom to help him. He has to pull them out himself.
This scene breaks my heart every time. He pulls the quills out one by one, and then he just breaks down. He cries until he has nothing left. He cries until he is physically exhausted.
But this is the pivot point. This is probably the most important moment in the book psychologically.
It is. He cries, he feels sorry for himself, and when he's done, he realizes something. The situation hasn't changed at all.
Right. The leg still hurts. The dark is still dark. The tears fix nothing.
Exactly. He realizes that self-pity accomplished absolutely nothing. And Paulsen writes that this is the moment old Brian starts to die and new Brian begins to form. New Brian is pragmatic. New Brian knows that emotions don't solve problems. Action solves problems.
The first rule of survival, feeling sorry for yourself, doesn't work.
It gets you nowhere. And ironically, that porcupine attack leads to his greatest discovery.
The serendipity. When he threw the hatchet in the dark, it hit the rock wall.
And created a shower of sparks. He saw it.
But he doesn't connect the dots immediately. He has a dream first, right?
Yeah, a dream about his father and his friend Terry. They're trying to tell him something. Terry is lighting a barbecue. And Brian wakes up and looks at the hatchet, looks at the rock, and the light bulb just goes on.
Fire.
He has the tool to make fire, but it's not instant success. It's not like the movies where you strike one match and have a bonfire. Paulsen actually walks us through the physics of fire starting.
It's a real scientific process of trial and error.
Okay. He hits sparks, but they die. He tries dried grass, it just smokes. He tries twigs, nothing. He realizes he needs a fuel with a high surface area to mass ratio. He needs something that will catch easily.
He needs a home for the sparks.
That's the exact phrase he uses. He needs something incredibly fine. He finds birch bark fluff. It's almost like paper. He has to tear it into tiny hairs. And even then, he has to learn to blow on it gently, to feed it oxygen without blowing it out.
It's a delicate balancing act.
Between heat, fuel, and oxygen, he has to become a scientist.
And when he finally gets that fire going,
It changes everything. He calls the fire his friend and his guard. It keeps the mosquitoes away. It gives him a focal point. It's the first time he feels like he has a weapon against the night. It's so primal. Humans have had this relationship with fire for hundreds of thousands of years, and Brian taps right into that ancestral memory.
he isn't alone anymore because he has the fire.
Exactly.
So things are looking up slightly. He has fire. He has shelter. But then we get the crushing blow.
The cirque plane.
A plane flies right overhead. Brian scrambles to light a signal fire, but he's just too slow. The wood isn't ready. The plane just turns away.
This is the lowest point. I think it's lower than the crash
Mhm.
because hope was right there. You could touch it, and then it left. Brian feels he will never get out. He goes up to the ridge with his hatchet, and he actually cuts himself.
Wow.
He wishes for death. He wants to end it. It's a very dark, very real moment of suicidal ideation caused by total despair. He feels abandoned by the world.
But he survives the night. He doesn't go through with it.
He does. And the next morning, he isn't the same. This is where the concept of tough hope comes in. He decides he will not let death in again. He stops hoping for rescue because that hope is fragile and it hurts too much when it breaks.
And he starts hoping for knowledge. He starts hoping for food. He shifts his focus to what he can actually control.
That distinction is huge. He stops looking at the woods as scenery he's trapped in and starts seeing them as a resource.
He's moving from being a passive victim to an active participant in the ecosystem.
He starts noticing how light hits the water, how shapes move in the brush. He stops waiting to be saved and decides to save himself.
We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to talk about how Brian moves from just surviving to actually thriving, mastering the food chain, and dealing with nature's absolute chaos. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Rose Emanuel,
I'm Justin Cole.
and we are launching our production company,
Give Us Mo. We are currently filming from the iconic I Love Lucy soundstage. Check out the pictures.
And maybe we can call this soundstage one of the homes for our productions.
We currently have 3 shows that we want to put through production.
One of which is called It Only Happens with Rose, and it's actually a love letter to I Love Lucy and situational comedy.
Members Only is a workplace comedy similar to The Office or Parks and Recreation that is set in a ritzy, rich country club.
And then our last project is called M, which is a prequel in the James Bond franchise, which follows Judi Dench's character when she was a spy in the 1960s.
These productions are unfortunately, but understandably not cheap.
So your support means the world to us, and you can help us get props, cast, crew, maybe even a soundstage.
Your contributions and your shares help tremendously.
We appreciate everything you guys do for us and have done for us in the past.
Absolutely. We have some cool perks for you to check out as well.
If you believe in us, we can make our dream into a reality.
Be sure to visit giveusmoentertainment.com for more information.
Let's create some momentum. That was so cheesy, I love it. Make sure to follow along on our journey.
Thanks. A bunch.
Cheers. And that's a wrap.
Welcome back to our analysis of Hatchet. We left Brian at the bottom of the emotional barrel, but he's climbing out. He has tough hope now, and tough hope needs fuel. He needs protein.
Exactly. Berries are not cutting it for a growing boy doing heavy labor. He sees a kingfisher diving into the lake and realizes there are fish. He realizes the lake is full of food if he can just figure out how to get to it.
But again, it's not easy. He tries a spear too slow, he makes a bow and arrow, and he's just shooting blindly.
He's missing every single time, and he can't figure out why. I mean, the fish are right there in front of him, but then he remembers his school physics.
Refraction.
Light refracts in water. The fish aren't where they look like they are. The water bends the light, creating an optical illusion.
So he has to aim below the image.
Right. And once he makes that mental adjustment, once he starts compensating for the refraction, he hits one.
The first meat.
And he eats it almost raw. He's so hungry. It's a massive victory. It proves he can sustain himself. He isn't just gathering anymore. He is hunting.
He also starts hunting birds. These fool birds, or ruffed grouse. They are everywhere, but he can't see them until they explode into flight and scare him to death.
This goes right back to seeing. He realizes he's looking for a bird, feathers, color, but the bird is camouflaged. It's designed by evolution to blend in.
And he still looks for the shape.
Exactly. He realizes they look like a pear. And once he starts scanning for the outline of a pear rather than a bird, suddenly the woods are full of them. It's pattern recognition. He is literally reprogramming his brain to filter visual data differently.
He spears one. And the text doesn't shy away from the reality of it. Cleaning the bird is messy, the smell of the insides, the blood.
But the meat is incredible. He's becoming a predator. He's part of the food chain now.
He also finds turtle eggs. A snapping turtle laid them in the sand.
And he eats those raw. It's purely for nutrition. It's not about taste anymore. It's just about fuel.
Which brings us to another great engineering lesson. He buries the eggs, thinking they're safe. But a skunk digs them up.
And Brian, feeling all protective of his food, yells at the skunk.
Bad move.
A terrible move. You do not negotiate with a skunk. The skunk sprays him directly in the face. He's blinded for hours. The smell lingers for weeks. But the lesson is, protect your food. You can't just hide it in the sand.
So he builds a food shelf.
High up on the rock face, accessible only by a ladder he makes, he is engineering solutions to biological problems. He is actively modifying his environment to suit his needs.
He even builds a fish pond, a little rock pen to trap live fish so he has fresh food on demand. He's essentially farming the wilderness.
He is. He's mastering his environment. He's creating a surplus. That's the definition of civilization in a microcosm. But just when you think he's safe, Paulsen reminds us of that indifference we talked about earlier.
The double disaster.
First, the moose.
Ugh, the moose. He's just washing his hands in the lake.
And a cow moose attacks him from behind. No warning, no provocation.
She just drives him into the mud, injures his ribs. It's absolutely brutal.
And Paulsen writes that it was insane. The moose wasn't hunting him. She wasn't defending a calf. Not right there. She just attacked. It reinforces that nature is random. You can do everything right. You can have the food, the fire, the shelter, and still get trampled because a moose is having a bad day.
And if that wasn't enough, that very night, he hears a roar like a train.
A tornado. In the middle of the Canadian woods, it hits the lake. And it destroys everything.
Everything. His shelter is gone, his fire is gone, his tools, his bed. Everything he built over weeks is wiped out in seconds. The landscape is literally rearranged.
He's left in the dark with injured ribs, with nothing but the hatchet at his belt. It's a complete and total reset.
But look at his reaction. This is the ultimate test of new Brian.
It is. When the porcupine hit him, he cried. Now, he smiles. He actually thinks, is that the best you can do?
That is such a hardcore moment.
It is. He's back to square one physically, but mentally, he is unbreakable. He knows he can rebuild because he did it once. He has the skills now. The tornado took his stuff, but it couldn't take his knowledge. That's the difference between the boy who crashed and the young man standing in the wreckage.
And the tornado actually leaves him a gift. In a twisted sort of way.
It does. It shifted the plane wreckage in the lake. The tail of the Cessna is now sticking out of the water.
And Brian remembers. The survival pack, it's still in there.
This kicks off the final act, the treasure hunt. He knows there's a pack, but getting to it is an engineering nightmare.
He builds a raft, brush pile 1. It's woven from treetops because the logs were too slippery to lash together without rope.
And he pushes it out to the plane, but he's weak. His ribs are screaming from the moose attack. It's a struggle.
And when he gets there, he can't find a way in. He has to chop through the aluminum fuselage with the hatchet. And here, the suspense just spikes. He's chopping away, the aluminum cuts like cheese, and then
He drops the hatchet.
the one thing, the tool that saved his life. The tool that is the title of the book. It slips from his hand and sinks to the bottom of the lake.
Without that hatchet, he can't get in. He can't start a fire easily. He is nothing. It's over.
He has to dive. And remember, he's weak. He has to go down into the murky water, lungs bursting, just feeling around in the mud. It takes him multiple attempts, but he finally grabs the rubber handle.
He gets it back. He cuts his way into the plane. He finds the survival bag jammed against the seats. But he finds something else, too.
The pilot.
Or what's left of him.
The description here is so haunting. The fish have been eating the pilot. The head is just a skull that wobbles in the current.
It's pure horror. Absolute horror. Brian vomits underwater. It's such a stark reminder of what happened here. This isn't a game. Death is very, very real. But he manages to drag the bag free. He gets it to the surface. He conquers his fear to get the prize.
He drags it back to shore, collapses, and falls asleep. The next morning, he opens it up.
And it's like Christmas morning. The wealth in that bag is staggering to him now. A sleeping bag, a foam pad, an aluminum cook set, matches,
Lighters.
a knife, a first aid kit, soap. These are things we take for granted every single day, but for Brian, they are absolute miracles.
It's overwhelming, but there's one item in there that changes the dynamic instantly. A rifle.
A .22 survival rifle. And this is a really interesting moment for analysis. You'd think he'd be overjoyed. But the text says he feels a shift.
It separates him from nature.
Exactly. With the bow and spear, he had to know the woods. He had to know the wind, the refraction of light, the behavior of the bird. He had to be in the environment. With the rifle, he just has to point and shoot.
He doesn't have to know anything.
Right. And he feels that distance immediately. He isn't sure he likes that change.
Yep.
It makes him powerful, but it removes him from the cycle he's worked so hard to join.
He also finds an emergency transmitter. He fiddles with it, thinks it's broken, and just leaves the switch on without realizing it.
He ignores it and turns to the food. Freeze-dried beef and potatoes, peach whip, orange drink.
He prepares this massive feast. He's standing there, about to eat this peach whip, and he hears a drone.
A bush plane lands on the lake. The pilot, a fur buyer, heard the transmitter signal. He steps out and he is shocked. He says, "You're that kid. They quit looking almost 2 months ago."
And Brian, he doesn't scream. He doesn't cry.
No. He's standing there, holding his little bowl of peach whip. He simply says, "My name is Brian Robeson. Would you like something to eat?"
It's the perfect ending. It shows his total composure.
It shows his dignity. He has reclaimed himself. He isn't a lost boy anymore. He is the host of his environment. He is offering hospitality in the middle of nowhere. It's a moment of absolute grace.
So let's wrap up with the post-rescue analysis. What happens to him after all this?
Well, his stats are telling. He lost 17% of his body weight, but the internal changes were permanent. He became quiet, extremely observant.
And he had this deep, profound appreciation for food.
Right. He would just stare at grocery store aisles. The sheer quantity and availability of food amazed him. He also researched everything he saw. He learned that the gut cherries were choke cherries. The fool birds were ruffed grouse. He validated his experience with knowledge.
He wanted to know the names of the things that kept him alive.
He did. And the secret.
Never told his father.
Never. He kept the secret about the man in the station wagon. He carried that burden alone, but he was strong enough to carry it now. He grew up. He realized that telling his father would only cause more pain, and he could handle the weight of that silence.
The book also notes that if he hadn't been rescued then, winter was coming.
And it would have been very, very rough. The lake would freeze, cutting off the fish, the game would disappear or hibernate. It's likely he wouldn't have survived the winter without heavy preparation that he hadn't even started yet, so the rescue was timely.
It really makes you think.
Yeah.
Brian survived by stripping away civilization and becoming part of the environment. The minute he opened that survival pack and pulled out the rifle, that connection was severed.
It raises that final question, doesn't it? Does technology save us, or does it stop us from truly understanding the world we live in? Brian survived because he became the woods. The rifle made him a tourist again. He gained safety, but he lost that intimacy with the wild.
That is a thought to chew on. Thank you for joining us for this analysis of Hatchet.
My pleasure.
See you next time.